Jesus left that place and went to his own hometown, accompanied by his disciples. And when the Sabbath came, he went to the synagogue and began to preach the word. Many who heard him were amazed at his words, and they said to one another, "Where did this man get these things? What is this wisdom he's been given? What are these remarkable miracles he's been performing? Isn't this the carpenter? Isn't this Mary's son? Aren't his brothers Judas and Joseph and Simon amongst us, his sisters too?" And they took great offence at him. And Jesus replied, "A prophet is not without honour, except in his own hometown, amongst his own relatives, in his own home." And Jesus could do no miracles there, except lay hands on a few sick people and heal them. And he was amazed at their lack of faith. Then Jesus went from village, teaching from village to village, and calling his disciples, he sent them out 2 by 2, that they may preach, heal, and have authority over demons. And these were the instructions he gave them: "Take nothing with you except your staff." No money, no bread, no bag. Wear your sandals, but take not an extra tunic. And when you enter a house in town, stay in that house until you leave town. And if nobody welcomes you or nobody listens to you, shake your dust off your feet as your testimony against them. So the disciples went from village to village, proclaiming the good news, driving out demons, and using oil. They healed many who were sick. King Herod heard about this, for Jesus' name had spread widely. Many were saying, "John the Baptist has been raised from the dead, and that is why there's these remarkable miracles at work in him." Others said, "He's Elijah." And still others said, "He's a prophet, like the prophets of long ago." But when Herod heard, he said, "John, whom I beheaded, has been raised from the dead." Now he said this because Herod himself had given the orders for John to be bound, arrested, and thrown in prison. He did this because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had often challenged him, saying, "It is not right for you to have your brother's wife." So Herodias nursed a grudge and wanted John dead. But Herod would not allow it, knowing John to be a holy and righteous man. Finally, the opportune time came. For Herod's birthday, he lay on a banquet and feast for the high officials, military commanders, and leading men of Galilee. Herodias' daughter danced for the dinner guests. Ooh. And Herod was greatly pleased, saying, "Ask me for anything you want, and I will give it to you. Ask me for up to half of my kingdom, and I will give it to you." So Herodias, his daughter, went to her mother and said, "Well, what shall I ask for?" "The head of John the Baptist." So she presented her request to the king. "I want you to give to me right now the head of John the Baptist on a platter." Herod was deeply distressed at this, but because of his oath in front of his dinner guests, he immediately sent for an executioner to bring the head of John on a plate. When his disciples heard about this, they went to take his body and present it in a tomb. When Jesus landed and saw such a large crowd, he had compassion on them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. So he began to teach them many things. By this time it was getting late. So his disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place and it's already getting later. Send the people away to the nearby countrysides and villages so that they may buy themselves something to eat." But he said, "You give them something to eat." That would take more than half a year's wages. Are we willing to spend that amount on bread and give it to them to eat? How many loaves do you have? Go and see. And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then Jesus got his disciples to sit the people in groups on the green grass. They sat down in groups of hundreds and 50s, and then taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up, he gave thanks. And he broke the bread and gave it to the disciples to give to the people. He also divided the 2 fish as well. Everybody ate and was satisfied. And the disciples went and picked 12 basketfuls of broken pieces of bread and fish. The number of men who had eaten was 5,000. Then Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him to Bethsaida in a boat whilst he dismissed the crowds. He went up a mountainside to pray, and he could see from where he was the disciples sat in the boat in the middle of the lake, and they were straining with the oars, for the wind was against them. Just before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. He was just about to pass them by when the disciples saw him. They said, "Ah! It's a ghost!" And Jesus said to them, "Take courage. It is I. Do not be afraid." And as he got in to the boat, the wind died down. And they were astonished at this, for they had not understood about the loaves, for their hearts were hardened.